Hi, girls. Hi, Emma. Hi, Claire. Hi, Emmy. So we're going to continue the story. Just wanted to show you that Nigel is feeling better. So he's on the mend. He's sitting up. He just had some soup and toast and applesauce. And our other little friend, Jean-Louis, is asleep right now. He's taking a nap. But we'll continue the story. And Teddy Nigel is very interested in the story. So we're on the 8th chapter. Are you a good noticer? Just at that moment, Polynesia came into the room and said something to the doctor in bird language. Of course, I did not understand what it was, but the doctor at once put down his knife and fork and left the room. You know it is an awful shame, said the parrot, as soon as the doctor had closed the door. Directly he comes back home, all the animals over the whole countryside get to hear of it, and every sick cat and mangy rabbit for miles around comes to see him and ask his advice. Now, there's a big fat hare outside at the back door with a squawking baby. Can she see the doctor, please? Thinks it's going to have convulsions. Stupid little things. Been eating deadly nightshade again, I suppose. The animals are too inconsiderate at times, especially the mothers. They come round and call the doctor away from his meals and wake him out of his bed at all hours of the night. I don't know how he stands it. Really, I don't. Why, the poor man never gets any peace at all. I've told him time and again to have special hours for the animals to come, but he is so frightfully kind and considerate. He never refuses to see them if there is anything really wrong with them. He says the urgent cases must be seen at once, because he's a wonderful doctor and a wonderful person, right? Why don't some of the animals go and see the other doctors? I asked. Oh, good gracious, exclaimed the parrot, tossing her head scornfully. Why, there aren't any other animal doctors, not real doctors. Of course, there are those vet persons, to be sure, but bless you, they're no good. You see, they can't understand the animal's language, so how can you expect them to be of any use? Imagine yourself or your father going to see a doctor who could not understand a word you say, nor even tell you in your own language what you must do to get well. Poof, those vets. They're that stupid, you've no idea. Put the doctor's bacon down by the fire, will you? To keep it hot till he comes back. Do you think I would ever be able to learn the language of the animals? I asked, laying the plate upon the hearth. Well, it all depends, said Polynesia. Are you clever at lessons? I don't know, I answered, feeling rather ashamed. You see, I've never been to school. My father is too poor to send me. Well, said the parrot, I don't suppose you have really missed much, to judge from what I have seen of schoolboys. But listen, are you a good noticer? Do you notice things well? I mean, for instance, suppose you saw two starlings. Starlings are a kind of bird on an apple tree, and you only took one good look at them. Would you be able to tell one from the other if you saw them again the next day? I don't know, I said. I never tried. Well, that, said Polynesia, brushing some crumbs off the corner of the table with her left foot. That is what you call powers of observation, noticing the small things about birds and animals, the way they walk and move their heads and flip their wings, the way they sniff the air and twitch their whiskers and wiggle their tails. You have to notice all those little things if you want to learn animal language. For you see, lots of the animals hardly talk at all with their tongues. They use their breath or their tails or their feet instead. That is because many of them, in the olden days when lions and tigers were more plentiful, were afraid to make noise for fear the savage creatures heard them. Birds, of course, didn't care, for they always had wings to fly away with. But that is the first thing to remember. Being a good noticer is terribly important in learning animal language. It sounds pretty hard, I said. You'll have to be very patient, said Polynesia. It takes a long time to say even a few words properly. But if you come here often, I'll give you a few lessons myself. And once you get started, you'll be surprised at how fast you get on. It would indeed be a good thing if you could learn, because then you could do some of the work for the doctor. I mean, the easier work like bandaging and giving pills. Yes, that's a good idea of mine. It would be a great thing if the poor man could get some help and some rest. It is a scandal the way he works. I see no reason why you shouldn't be able to help him a great deal. That is, if you are interested in animals. Oh, I'd love that, I cried. Do you think the doctor would let me? Certainly, said Polynesia, as soon as you have learned something about doctoring. I'll speak of it to him myself. Shh, I hear him coming. Quick, bring his bacon back to the table. And here's a picture. And there's Tommy Stubbins right at the table. And Polynesia, the parrot, is saying, you'll have to be a good noticer, right? Chapter 9, The Garden of Dreams. When breakfast was over, the doctor took me out to show me the garden. Well, if the house had been interesting, the garden was 100 times more so. Of all the gardens I have ever seen, his was the most delightful, the most fascinating. At first, you did not realize how big it was. You never seemed to come to the end of it. When at last you were quite sure that you had seen it all, you would peer over a hedge, or turn a corner, or look up some steps, and there would be a whole new part you never expected to find. It had everything a garden can have, or ever has had. There were wide lawns with carved stone seats, green with moss. Over the lawns hung weeping willows, and their feathery bough tips brushed the velvet grass when they swung with the wind. The old flagged paths had high clipped yew hedges on either side of them, so they looked like the narrow streets of some old town. And through the hedges, doorways had been made, and over the doorways were shapes like vases and peacocks and half-moons, all trimmed out of the living trees. That's an art called topiary, where they carve images out of the trees. There was a lovely marble fish pond with golden carp and blue water lilies and big green frogs. A high brick wall alongside the kitchen garden was all covered with pink and yellow peaches ripening in the sun. Can you imagine, girls, this beautiful garden? I would like to go there, would you? There was a wonderful great oak, hollow in the trunk, big enough for 4 men to hide inside. So you could actually go in the tree because it was hollow. I did that once in Scotland. There was an old oak tree, and I went inside. Many summer houses there were too, some of wood and some of stone, and one of them was full of books to read. In a corner among some rocks and ferns was an outdoor fireplace where the doctor used to fry liver and bacon when he had a notion to take his meals in the open air. There was a couch as well, on which he used to sleep, it seems, on warm summer nights when the nightingales were singing at their best. It had wheels so it could be moved about under any tree they sang in. But the thing that fascinated me the most of all was a tiny little tree house high up in the top branches of a great elm, with a long rope ladder leading to it. The doctor told me he used it for looking at the moon and the stars through a telescope. It was the kind of garden where you could wander and explore for days and days, always coming upon something new, always glad to find the old spots over again. The first time that I saw the doctor's garden, I was so charmed by it that I felt I would like to live in it, always and never go outside of it again. That first time, oops, sorry. For it had everything within the walls to give happiness, to make living pleasant, to keep the heart at peace. It was the Garden of Dreams. Ah, I'd love to go there. One peculiar thing I noticed immediately was when I went into it was that there were a lot of birds everywhere. Every tree seemed to have 2 or 3 nests in it, and heaps of other wild creatures appeared to be making themselves at home there, too. Stoats and tortoises and dormice seemed to be quite common, and not in the least shy. Toads of different colors and sizes hopped about the lawn as though it belonged to them. Green lizards, which were very rare in Puddleby, sat up on the stone in the sunlight and blinked at us. Even snakes were to be seen. Julie doesn't like snakes, right? Julie doesn't like snakes. You need not be afraid of them, said the doctor, noticing that I started somewhat when a large black snake wiggled across the path in front of us. These fellows are not poisonous. They do a great deal of good in keeping down many kinds of garden pests. I play the flute to them sometimes in the evening. They love it, stand right up on their tails, and carry on to no end. Funny thing, their taste in music. Why do all the animals come and live here? I asked. I never saw a garden with so many creatures in it. Well, I suppose it's because they get the kind of food they like, and nobody worries or disturbs them. And then, of course, they know me, and if they or their children get sick, I presume they find it handy to be living in a doctor's garden. Look, you see that sparrow on the sundial, swearing at the blackbird down below? Well, he has been coming here every summer for years. He comes from London. The country sparrows around here are always laughing at him. They say he chirps with such a Cockney accent. He is the most amusing bird, very brave, but very cheeky. He loves nothing better than an argument, but he always ends it by getting rude. He is a real city bird. In London, he lives around St. Paul's Cathedral. Cheapside, we call him. Are all these birds from the country around here? I asked. Most of them, said the doctor, but a few rare ones who ordinarily never come to England at all visit me every year. For instance, that handsome little fellow hovering over the snapdragon there. He's a ruby-throated hummingbird, comes from America. Strictly speaking, he has no business in this climate at all. It is too cool. I make him sleep in the kitchen at night. Then every August, about the last week of the month, I have a purple bird of paradise come all the way from Brazil to see me. She is a very great swell. Hasn't arrived yet, of course. And there are others, foreign birds from the tropics mostly, who drop in on me in the course of the summer months. But come, I must show you the zoo.